Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming. It's good to see you here. I'm Kate Clavet. I'm from the IT product marketing team at Atlassian, and I'm here to talk you through 10 battle-tested tips to make incidents suck a little bit less. So today what we're going to cover is we're going to talk about setting up processes, defining key information, and communicating well. I'll give you some examples of how you can do that within Jira Service Management and Opsgenie as we go through. A lot of this information is going to feel a little bit basic, but we often forget the basic things in the middle of the stress of an incident. And so these are just some really key reminders based on a lot of conversations I've had and a lot of time in the incident management space. So we all know that incidents are costly and really stressful. That's probably why we're here. Depending on the size of your industry and the vertical that you're in, it can cost anywhere from $2,000 to upwards of $5,600 per minute, according to Gartner. So that's something to keep in mind during an incident. We all know that they're very stressful. It's really awful, and we're often woken up in the middle of the night as a result of these incidents. But with the right tools and processes, we can make them suck just a little bit less. The first tip that I have for you is to get on the same page. I love this meme this says, you can't get on the same page with people who are in a different book. Whether you're using the same terminology, you might assume that everyone's on the same page. You all know what the definition of an incident is, but somebody might be following the ITIL definition and somebody might be following the definition that they learned at their first job out of college. So it's something to keep in mind. Don't assume anything, define everything. Whenever you onboard a new person to your team, make sure you re-go through all of these things as part of the onboarding process. So the second tip is to define key terms. So based on my earlier example, an alert might mean something to someone, and it might be something different to another person. So the ITIL definition here is a notification that a threshold has been breached, something has changed, or a failure has occurred. Your company might call scheduled maintenance during shopping hours for AWS EC2 an alert. That's something you want to be aware of. But this chart is really helpful in getting everyone on the same page. Socialize this chart, both within your internal organization and then also with the folks who are going to be in leadership positions, because you really need the top-down assistance when it comes to managing incidents. An incident is an unplanned interruption to a quality reduction of an IT service. A major incident is the highest category, but depending on which tooling that you're using, the definition of that tooling might be a little bit different. For example, we have incidents and major incidents in Jira Service Management and Opsgenie. So you just want to not only define what those are, but then have key examples for your team to understand what that type of thing might look like. The third tip is to capture and identify key fields. There's a lot of ways to do this within Jira Service Management. You have the opportunity to use our forms, to attach forms to the incident record, so you can get all of the information that you need. Those fields are dynamic, and they can also pull from assets. So you have all of the key information for your incident responders, and then you can capture that information for your PIR at the end and export that to Confluence to share with leadership and then relevant stakeholders. The fourth tip is to define and socialize the SLAs and priorities. You can easily set up SLAs from Jira Service Management for all of your records, and you can also set up automation so that when an SLA is about to be breached, you can notify the right people. If you need to escalate that and notify additional folks during a breach, you have that opportunity as well. When I say socialize the SLAs, I mean tell your workers, tell your agents, tell your responders what the SLAs are. I also mean make sure that you set that expectation for your customers and your stakeholders, because during an incident, that will really help to manage their expectations and take the stress off your teams, possibly even deflect some call volume or some ticket volume. Again, in terms of socializing those SLAs and priorities, I included this quote from a friend of mine who is an ITIL certified ITSM manager, Michael Marks. He says, everything starts and ends with processes and expectations that you set for those processes. One of the best changes we made was adding an SLA for the time we expect a technician to communicate back to the customer. And that's just a real life example I like to use because it really shows you the customer's perspective or the stakeholder's perspective in that moment. It goes a long way just to set that expectation. Additionally, you want to outline workflows and status changes. This is an example of a workflow in Jira Service Management. We have a bunch out of the box. We also have a library. We have community members who also, thank you if any of you are here, by the way, who add workflow templates for us in our library. If you don't want to use one out of the box, you can easily customize it. It's just a drag and drop exercise. But once you define what those should look like, you can define them within Jira Service Management, so it's all automated and you don't need to worry about it in the future. Don't overcomplicate or over-customize is something I like to stress, because a lot of times you might try to fit the tool to your process, but there might be bits in your process that are broken that you can adjust, and you're missing that opportunity by fitting the tool into your process and over-customizing. You're also making it more difficult for whomever the admin is who takes on or inherits that instance later on. So do your best to use what's there and don't try to make it too complicated. So this is another quote from Michael Marks. He was talking about how instead of changing the way that they approached incidents and alerts, they customized everything in their new tool to fit the workflow that they were using at that time. And it caused a lot of headaches to them. It also created a much longer implementation time. So it's not to say that everything in your process should be thrown out. Just try to look for opportunities in your process that you can improve, and maybe the new tooling offers that opportunity, or there's a new way of doing things. Just don't start from scratch every time. So communicate well. There's a couple of these slides here because I really want to underline what that means. Communicate, a lot of times, especially now, we've all been remote and we've been communicating through Slack. You can message someone and think you're both on the same page about a project, but you both come away from that conversation with two very different interpretations of what that conversation was and what the outcomes are. So define what channels you're going to be using for communication. What does effective communication look like? We'll go a little bit more in depth on the next slide. Have expectations been set clearly and communicated? Is the chosen style of communication building trust? Is it working? Does everyone feel informed? Within Jira Service Management during incidents, you have the opportunity to communicate through a chat tool like Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Teams or Slack. You also have the opportunity to have a live Zoom, so a video chat directly from the incident record. Just click into that. You can additionally click on stakeholders and see what communications have been sent and who you need to directly communicate with. You can also use status page to automate communicating to your stakeholders, both internal and external, by setting permissions for both. So those are just some ways within Jira Service Management that you're able to keep everybody on the same page. When I say communicate well, I mean talk about exactly what's down, who it's down for, or rather what's degraded. If nothing's down, you just have a service degradation, when the issue was detected, when your next update is going to come through, because it's that managing expectations piece that really helps people. They know, okay, well, this is the information I have right now, but when can I expect more information, more details? When can I expect an update? So include the time and date, the description of the problem, when the next update is coming, and where to go with questions. Tip number 7, define incident response roles. So within our tooling, within Jira Service Management, you have the opportunity to do this when an incident kicks off by assigning roles within the incident record. These are some of the roles that I've identified that are commonly used. An incident commander, who's kind of in charge of everything, making sure that everything goes smoothly. A communications officer, who is responsible for stakeholder communications to make sure that communications piece doesn't fall through the cracks when everybody's busy working on the issue. A scribe or a note taker. This is something that's nice to have. A lot of our tooling does record the entire life cycle of the incident and different actions taken during that incident, as well as communications, but it's something to keep in mind. It's always helpful to have during the post-mortem or the PIR. And then, of course, you would have your subject matter experts who would be helping with the task at hand. So tip number 8, practice and reflect. When I say practice, I mean whether that's chaos engineering for you, whether that's running a fake incident and just seeing, did everybody go to the right place? Did everyone know what to do? How was the response? Did everyone understand their roles? Do we communicate well with stakeholders, both internally and externally? What are opportunities for us to improve the next time around? And this is a senior JIRA admin and community leader, Matt Dorr. He gave a great quote that says, plan for the disasters, test the plans, assume the worst will happen, and don't panic. And that's a key during the incident. Incidents are unavoidable. They're not pleasant, right? But they're going to happen. It's just going to happen. It happens to everyone. So just keep that in mind during the process. I suggest running it on a quarterly basis, especially if you have new employees or new roles or new services that you've added to your system, just to make sure that everyone stays on the same page and their incident response is fresh. Socialize the process and the expectations. So this does touch on a couple of the other points and tips that we discussed, but it's so important that I really wanted to underline it. Socialize both internally and externally to the stakeholders. That includes communicating the SLAs. Processes and expectations don't mean anything if everyone doesn't know about them. Another important key is to get buy-in from management, whether that's your team's manager, upper management, executives, because if you don't have buy-in from them, there's not going to be support from the process, and there's not going to be, it will be less likely to succeed. Make expectations clear to your responders. Make sure they understand what their role is and why it's important to resolve this thing at hand, and also make that clear to leadership as well. And the 10th is my favorite because it's nice to always end on a positive note, but celebrate the good. A couple of folks I've talked to after an incident, for their responders, they might do a special lunch, or they might provide some sort of Amazon gift card as a thank you for their work. Internally at Atlassian, we have something called kudos, where when a teammate does something well, not just during an incident, but more so in general, we're able to recognize them with a kudos, which is a personalized note, as well as a gift card or the opportunity to donate to their favorite charity. So keep these things in mind. I love this cartoon by Sarah Jane Vickery. There's a little, I don't know if you can read it depending on how far you are, but there's a little peanut that says, "I'm not too small." And then the larger folks in this image are saying, "You're key. We need small wins." So during an incident, just remember that even the small wins count and they matter. And just to sum it up, make sure you get on the same page, define those key terms. Be a little bit obtuse in your communication because that's how we can succeed during incidents. Define and socialize SLAs. Capture and identify key fields. These will be key not only in surfacing the right information to your responders, but also in the reporting aspect of the incident and in the postmortem as well. Outline workflow and status changes. Again, you can automate a lot of this within Jira Service Management. Communicate, over-communicate. You're probably sick of me hearing say the word communicate, but it's really important during an incident. Define the incident response roles. Practice and reflect, have those fake incidents on a regular basis, and assess your process and see how everybody did. Socialize those processes and expectations, whether it's with something like Confluence or it's written on your website. However you can get that information to your internal stakeholders and your external ones. Make sure that it's there. It helps manage expectations and take stress off in the moment. And then celebrate the wins, even the little things. And that's it. You can download the full incident management guide at atlassian.com/whitepapers incident management guide. At the end of that guide, there are templates that you can use within your own team in order to refine or define your incident management process. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be around. Thank you so much.